Throughout history, from Egypt to Rome to America and now to the supposedly communist China, wealth inequality is the biggest bane on humanity that ensures poverty, as the wealthy have the means to ensure they get all the good stuff and can effectively bribe the law and can affect public opinion, have few if any consequences, and get policies through because they have the ear of politicians hungry for donations that the rest of us don't have. And they aren't happier for it. The more wealth they have, the more worried and stressed they are about keeping it. And it isn't even about the money. Once you make over a certain amount, the money isn't even what matters. It's a score in a game of status and prestige that pushes them to want and get more at all costs. Wealth inequality is an unnatural state of being that only occurred once agrarian farming and kingdoms made it possible. Prior to that, you were driven to have prestige and honor of those around you, and depending on the tribe, you did different things to gain that honor and prestige. A video I watched from Big Think, I believe, that I can't find anymore, claimed that we need to appeal to the egos and prestige of the wealthy to make the world a better place. My immediate reaction was, that's stupid. We shouldn't coddle our rich. We need to take their money and end their affluenza. But I've been watching Extra Credits Extra History series, and the rise of income inequality always happens. It's a natural state of owning stuff. Even in the best laid out system, income inequality of people who want to score big in the prestige of being the richest always happens. As the communist experiment showed, income inequality on some level is actually good. It gamifies incentives, but if the poorest can't survive, income inequality becomes the slave masters who whip to keep people in line for fear of losing their jobs and falling into poverty. So here is an idea that will probably never get off the ground, but a way to change what being rich means, making the super wealthy loved and appreciated, which is what they actually want, and getting the rest of the world out of poverty at the same time. Create an amendment to the Constitution that states, in 5 years of this amendment passing, no citizen of the United States may own more than 10 billion times the net worth of the poorest American citizen of 18 years or older, where all Americans with wealth considered negative will be considered to have $1. As of 5 years, the government will seize all property over that percentage. Any wealthy American who renounces their citizenship will have their excess wealth seized before they can leave the nation, for it was America that gave them that wealth. This is the first part. This would prevent people like the Kochs from renouncing their citizenship and moving to a different country. It would also immediately pressure the richest Americans to push to end all predatory banking practices so that only those who can pay back can take out large loans. Student and healthcare debt would be slashed through government policy, and a basic guaranteed income would be pushed through so that no American owns a net worth below $1. If they could raise net worth of basic income to everyone having a net worth of $10, they could keep up to $100 billion, which is more than Jeff Bezos has. Unlike Scandinavia, where unions are a big factor that keep inequalities low, Japanese businesses, either through laws or traditions and honor, pay their CEOs no more than around 50 times the amount of their lowest workers. The US has neither of that here, and our CEOs earn around 1,500 times more than the lowest paid employee, and that's income, not wealth. The next part of the amendment reads, after 5 more years, this ratio shall be reduced to 1 billion to 1. In another 5 years, 100 million to 1, and reduced by a factor of 10 until the ratio reaches 1 million to 1. This would ensure that if rich people want to remain rich above 50 billion, they have to ensure everyone owns at least 50,000. Most of us, even without debt, don't own that much. Most of us with student loans have negative value, even after a decade of working. There may be a clause to base this off of cost of living adjustment, but A, the rich don't need that much money, and B, any wealth that they have with this ratio is actually ensuring that Americans are better off overall. But wait, you say, this is very American-centric. The rich will just push us to go to war and exploit the labor of poor nations to bring prosperity to Americans, and the American people will just become spoiled and entitled and lose touch with what poverty actually means. That's where the next part comes in. In 10 years of this amendment passing, no citizen of the United States may own more than 10 billion times the net worth of the poorest person in the world of 18 years or older, where all people with wealth considered negative will be considered to have $1. As of 10 years, the government will seize all property over this percentage. After 10 more years, this ratio shall be reduced to 1 billion to 1, in another 10 years, 100 million to 1, and reduced to a factor of 10 until the ratio reaches 1 million to 1. This is only logical, as Americans make up only about 5% of the population, and there is a ton of poverty in the world that will need to be cleaned up. And this would drive people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett to crank up their investment in poor nations even more so, and pressure other nations to adopt similar policies so they don't have to pay for the brunt of pulling the rest of the world out of poverty. They could negotiate this to 20 years per increment if that was what it took to get the amendment passed. Fixing the US would be relatively easy. Fixing the world would take a lot more time and effort. This would ensure that if you're really rich, you have a number that values both your wealth and your contribution to society that allows you to keep that wealth. It ensures that the rest of the nation and the world has a check and balance on political influence that you can use to counter against the wealthy elites collectively if they care about something enough. It would force America to truly live up to its standard of being at least a semi-meritocracy. If you don't count slavery, America started out as the most income-equal nation on the planet at its time because corporations were illegal, one of the main points of the Boston Tea Party, and all work was negotiated between a single employer or partnership and a single employee. Post-civil rights, Rockefeller changed that on its head with trusts and monopolies and the rise of corporations. We went through a Gilded Age, and now we're in a second Gilded Age in America. Rome had the same problem with their conquests and brought in slaves. The wealthy employed these slaves and used that wealth to snatch up more land, and the middle class was wiped out. Without this income inequality, it's quite likely the Roman Republic would have remained a republic, but no one at the time of the founding of the Republic could have dreamed that there would be this much wealth would even be possible by a wealthy elite. This led to the populism and a breakdown of democratic norms which doomed the Republic. We have to fix this to ensure it can't happen again. Possibly anywhere else in the world if we want a stable, strong, healthy planet where the minds of all are utilized and not wasted. I don't have a problem with people being rich. The problem occurs when people can't survive or own their own labor or are just a mishap or two away from hopelessness. So long as no one is living below a certain level, go be rich. You actually earned it, unlike the BS we're led to believe about them right now. A 2010 study asked Americans to describe ideally how wealth should be distributed in a society. Most believe it should be a chart like this. Then what they thought it actually was, they produced this chart. Then they were shown the actual, and very few expected it to be this lopsided. None of this could happen under this amendment. However, this is probably just a pipe dream and would never see the light of day. While Bill Gates and Warren Buffett may warm up to it, the massive opposition by the rich would be huge. It would have to be a constitutional amendment, so good luck with that.